So, this is one topic, artificial intelligence, which is a lot more, of interest to people. It's definitely a buzzword, but if you really ask people what do they know about artificial intelligence, the number of people answering yes does fall down sharply. So I think there is a lot of interest in hearing Jayesh today from people who really don't fully understand what this entire talk around AI is. To talk about Jayesh, he is from the 1998 Solonian batch, and he's done his graduation in engineering, and then has an MBA from IIM Kozhikode. And I went through the CV, and really it's a multifaceted career. He's done a lot of different things, but I think the one thing that really stands apart is the fact that he is running the podcast on AI in automotive industry. I've heard of that. I think something which really stands out. Today, of course, I presume he's going to talk of the broader AI discipline, not restricted only to automotive. But besides that, he's dabbled in marketing. He's been an entrepreneur. He's done corporate roles, leadership roles, and really multiple facets to Jayesh's personality. Don't want to take up more time. I will stop presenting. Jayesh, you can start your presentation right now. Welcome.
Thank you, Sunayji. Thank you for the very, very warm welcome and the kind words, and a warm welcome to all of you, and namaskar, and thank you for making the time to join this session. I'm under some pressure because I have been told this is the most voted topic, and so expectations are very high. I hope I will not disappoint you, and you will go away from this session with some interesting insights and some interesting nuggets. Arunaji, that you can share with your granddaughter and appear at least as smart as she is. But what we are going to do today in the next 1 hour is we are going to build our first no-code AI application, all of us. It requires some deep understanding of double regression techniques. It needs a background in computer science and mathematics. So if you have a background in all these areas, I think you will. No, I'm just joking. We don't have to do any of that. We are going to keep it. We are going to keep it very simple and very straightforward. I wanted to make sure that the discussion today and the dialogue today is very practical, and it is things that you can benefit from in your day-to-day life. It has no coding required, no long lines of text that I'm going to share with you. I just want to share some of my experiences, and hopefully you can benefit from those. Okay, so I will start sharing my screen now, and once you can see it, please let me know. Okay, I can see that it has come up now. When I was asked to give this talk on AI, obviously it is such a broad topic and such a vast universe of AI out there. And that was very difficult and very challenging for me to come up with a line that would encapsulate what I wanted to talk about. But after giving it some thought, I thought something like this is kind of hitting the nail on the head. Living better with AI. How do we use this fantastic, amazing new technology that is at our fingertips today? How do we use it to live a better life? And those are some things that I'm going to share with you today. So a little bit about me, and Sunayji did a fantastic job explaining my education. So I will not go there. In addition to all of the things Sunayji spoke about, I've also done a course from Oxford University on artificial intelligence. That was a few years back now. From a professional perspective, I have always been focused on the automotive industry, and I have done everything from being a journalist and riding and driving interesting machines like the one you see in the picture, to starting my own venture, to for the last 16 odd years operating as an executive in this industry, helping automotive companies on sales, marketing, retail, and after sales side of their business. In 2019, I started the AI in Automotive podcast. AI was not yet entirely mainstream as it is now, that everything from your mixer grinder to your washing machine and your fridge has AI splattered all over it. It was a slightly more niche field. And I was seeing as an automotive industry executive that it was starting to play a bigger and bigger and more significant role in the industry. So I said, why don't we start this podcast as a platform to have some discussions and dialogues around how this technology is shaping the future of automotive and mobility, and that's how that podcast came to be. I'm not able to give it as much time as I would like to, but it still remains a very strong area of interest. And then beyond sort of my education and my professional profile, I live in London in the UK. I'm married with two little girls, so I have two daughters. I support Arsenal Football Club. It takes up a lot of my time and usually determines my mood on the weekends. I used to be, and still I'm a big fan of Calvin and Hobbes. I feel the way it is able to communicate deep philosophical messages in a very simple and easy to understand wrapper is amazing. With that, there are a couple of disclaimers that I need to share with you before I go in, and I always do this in any of my presentations and talks, and I'm sharing them with you. But there is a second category of things that I know I don't know about. So I'm going to be very honest with you in certain cases where if there's a question and I don't know about it, I am aware that I don't know about it, and I will be very transparent in sharing that with you. But there is a huge category of things that I don't even know what I don't know, right? So that is one thing to keep in mind. So I'm not by any stretch of the imagination claiming to be a global expert in this field and an all-knowing personality. The good news for you is I'm exactly like you, and so a lot of my experiences are very grounded in how this technology has helped me, and I believe will continue to help me, and I think you will draw a lot of meaningful value out of there. The second thing I want to share with you is that a lot of what I share today is based on my personal experiences. So they may not be representative, they may be very different from how some other individuals have experienced this technology, but I cannot talk to them. I can only speak to my experiences, and today's discussion and today's dialogue is very personal in that sense that I'm sharing a lot of what I have learned. I'm going to actually open up my ChatGPT page and take you through some of my prompts and my conversations with ChatGPT. So you start to get a sense of how I'm using this technology. And obviously, because it is a very personal dialogue, a very personal conversation, it is full of my own limitations and my own biases. So I apologize in advance if some of those biases creep into what I'm going to share with you, or my limitations stop me from sharing certain things. So, but they are very real, and I want to acknowledge that they exist. With that, I want to share a quote that has stayed with me for the longest time. I used to be, and to an extent still am, an avid reader of science fiction, and one of my favorite authors is Arthur C. Clarke. For those of you, and I'm sure I see a lot of nodding faces, so you heard of Arthur C. Clarke, but Arthur C. Clarke is the guy who basically discovered the concept of the geostationary orbit. So he has no background in space studies, but because he's a science fiction author and he has a deep understanding of science, he kind of came up with this hypothesis that at a certain height of orbit, the orbit is geostationary, which means anything in that orbit will always move in sync with the Earth. And that was the basis for a lot of research that was then carried out to either, they tried to prove or disprove the hypothesis and discovered that it is actually true. And one of the most amazing things he has said is that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I feel this applies to the state of AI today more than anything else. And if I look sort of 3 to 5 years into the future and I speculate and extrapolate of where this technology might go and where it might take us, I feel that this quote and the sentiment behind this quote will only get stronger and stronger. It will become more and more like magic till we take it for granted and we don't even question it anymore. But to me, this is a great statement that encapsulates very well where we are with this amazing technology. With that, I want to share 3 things with you today, and hopefully these give you a little a good perspective of this technology and what it is doing for us today, what it can do for us in the future. I will not get into theoretical definitions of artificial intelligence and the various technologies that sit within this umbrella that we call artificial intelligence. But I do want to talk to you about the past. So where did this technology originate, and how did we get to the point that we are at today? It's not a very deep history lesson, but it's enough if it piques your interest for you to take away some notes and dig deeper in your free time. But I want to talk about the past. It's important to understand how we got here. I then want to spend time talking about the present. So how can we today, with the state of the technology and the tools that are available to us, how can we live a better, more fulfilling life with the help of this technology? And we'll talk about that a little bit. And then briefly towards the end of the presentation, I do want to talk about what I see as the future, or what my point of view is, or what my speculation is about where this is headed, and what about the future of artificial intelligence excites me, and what gives me a little bit of caution and makes me a little circumspect. I want to share some of those things with you as well. With that, let's jump in. So the origins of artificial intelligence. What is artificial intelligence? If I could explain it in very simple terms, in a way that even a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old will understand. It is basically trying to give machines the characteristic of human thinking, right? It's a very simple kind of outcome. You want your car to behave in a way that a human is driving it, but the car is driving itself, and that is delivered through artificial intelligence as an enabling technology. You want your phone to speak to you as if a human is speaking to you. You're giving your phone some human characteristics, and the attempt, or the way we try to do it, is by injecting this technology in its various forms, right? So at a very, very high level, that's a good sort of simple definition of what artificial intelligence is. It is giving machines the ability to think, act, and behave like human beings would have behaved, right? Within this world of artificial intelligence, there is a very interesting concept called the Turing test. And the Turing test says, if a machine that is running artificial intelligence, and as a human, you cannot differentiate by evaluating its output, whether it's a machine or a human, it is claimed to have passed the Turing test. Just something to keep in mind, right? So, and we are getting quite close to that point in a number of use cases of artificial. But this technology is not new. In fact, artificial intelligence, the term was coined way back in the 1950s, and research started at American universities back in the day with the very limited technology that we had back then. But those were the origins of artificial intelligence. The principle of, or the idea of giving machines a way to behave like humans is very, very old now. This is not something new, right? But, for about 2 decades, between the 70s and the 90s, the world went through what we call the AI winter. So for various reasons, and the initial promise and the promises that the marketing guys made in the 50s about what artificial intelligence will achieve did not come to pass. And so, around the 70s and the 80s, the investment community kind of lost interest, and the engineers lost interest, and they had some new things to chase. So the technology went through a few decades of what we now call the AI winter. So, funding was cut, and progress slowed down a lot, right? But then around the early part of this century, there was a quiet resurgence, right? And so, we saw the internet becoming what it became. We saw that, connectivity, data, compute, all of this became more accessible, or started to become more accessible. So there was again a sort of resurgence in artificial intelligence research, and you started to see that new approaches and new ways of thinking about AI started to sprout up around this time. This was also the time when a lot of the technology companies in the US made ridiculous amounts of money, and they started to make these moonshot bets on what the future will be, and some really crazy ideas started to get funded and be allocated resources to, and AI was one of them. And then from that emerged things like Alexa and Siri, which were sort of the very early versions of what a consumer grade AI application or an AI use case might look like, right? So that was kind of the early sort of quiet resurgence. And then, at the start of this decade is really when this roaring return and AI becoming part of the zeitgeist, and it's everywhere, and it's defining our culture, and everybody you speak to wants to talk about AI, and every company wants to have AI on their web page because it's helping them jump their share price. So all of this is really where it is now starting to become very, very mainstream. People like you and I who should have no business having access to a technology this powerful, today have it at our fingertips, and every phone can download a ChatGPT or a Claude app, and it can become such a powerful tool in our palms, even more than it is today. So I think we are at a point where this is really, really starting to become part of who we are, and it's starting to define this age, right? So this is where we are. For those of you who track the industry, you will know that ChatGPT has the honor of being the fastest growing product in the history of humankind. And there are some reasons why all of this has come together at this point. I always like to ask, why, and then my next question is why now? And in this case, the answer to that why now is that, in the past, these ideas had existed, this theory had existed, but making it practical required huge amounts of data, it required huge amounts of computation power, and that was just not available in the past. And there have been developments in technology over the last several decades that has led us to this point where there are statements that say about 99% of the data that has been generated by humanity has been generated in the last 3 years or something to that effect, right? So that gives you a sense of how much data is available today, which is an important fuel for AI to work, how much computation is available today, which is an important, again, an enabler or the motor or the engine that makes this technology run. And because those things have become available now is why we see this technology gaining so much prominence. So with that kind of very, very brief history lesson, and if you'd like to go into more details of any of those points, I'll show you in a minute how you can do it. And that's where we come to the present, which is living better with AI. Another quick disclaimer, just to contextualize today's talk, AI as a field is very, very, very vast. And there is no way I can do justice to it in an hour or in a day. And I'm probably not the right person to do justice to it anyway. So I'm not going to talk about AI as a sort of broad, all-encompassing field. Within the field of AI, there is a small subset called generative AI. And generative AI is a set of technologies that, it's in its name, it is generating content using AI as a technology. How it is doing it, again, we won't go into it. It requires a lot of science and math, and I'm not the right guy. But if you think about generative AI, any piece of technology that can generate words, voice, videos, pictures would fall under this circle of generative AI. Within generative AI, there are tools that generate video, there are tools that generate pictures, there are tools that generate music, but we are going to focus on specific tools that generate words, right? So there is a reason I focus on a subset of generative AI which creates words, and so that's what we will focus on. Now, you would have heard of products and terms like ChatGPT or Claude or Llama or Gemini, and these are all tools and products that different technology companies have brought to the market. But we are going to focus on not a specific tool per se, but how this particular subset of generative AI that allows you to generate words or generate text, and what roles that can play in your life. So when I started to think about living better, I took my own sort of life into consideration, and I thought, what are the biggest components of my existence? If I take a typical day, what are the things I'm doing in a typical day that sort of make up my life? It may be different for you, but again, like I said, this is very much a personal perspective. So the ones I came to was, there is an element of live, there is an element of work, and there is an element of play, right? For me, live is things I do at home, either to run my house or to improve it. Things I do with my kids, so parenting them. And then one of my recent hobbies, cooking. So I do a lot of cooking at home. And so, I wanted to talk about some very specific experiences around those 3 areas, which for me fall under live. It may be different for you guys, but just to get an anchor to this discussion, right? So that's what I consider under the head of live. Then I spend a lot of time working, right? So working could be, in your case, in my case, it is a day job. In some people's case, it might be an entrepreneurial venture. For some, it might be a side hustle. And for some of us lucky folks, it might be a combination of all 3. So we're going to cover sort of how this technology can play a role in each of those areas. And then play for me is 3 things: holiday, travel, and sport. It may be different for you guys, but I thought it's a good sort of anchor to sort of start our dialogue and give you a perspective of how this technology might play a role in your life. And I thought if this technology can help me do some of these things better than I'm doing today, and by better I mean either less time or less pain, or better quality, better output, right? I thought that's what sort of living better would be. But then I started to think of, when I say living better with AI, what might with AI represent? And then I started to go through my ChatGPT logs over the last couple of years, and I saw that most things I'm using AI for in my day-to-day life, whether it is living, working, or playing, are either learning or creating or building. And I will talk to you about each of these 3. So then a nice, I apologize as an MBA, but a nice 3x3 grid emerges. And then, you have live, work, and play, and you have learn, create, and build. So this technology can help you learn as part of your living, as part of your working, as part of your play. It can help you create some things, again, as part of live, work, and play, and it can help you build some things as part of live, work, and play. And then I thought, this is too abstract. So I want to take some specific examples, but I don't just want to take examples. I also want to share some examples of how I have used it. So let's start with some generic stuff first. And what I would like you to do, if that's okay, is first give me a sense of how many of you are regular users of tools like ChatGPT, irregular users of tools like ChatGPT, never used it before, or used it once and stopped using it, or you're power users of ChatGPT. I mean, it has completely transformed the way you work and live and think and operate. Bye, Arunaji, thank you. So let's have some hands up for those who are occasional users of ChatGPT. I know what it is. I'm aware of it. I've used it once or twice. I don't really know how to make the best use of it. So, it exists. I'm aware of it. Okay, so I see a few hands going up. Okay, good. Good. Let's give it a quick count. Okay, let's have some hands for those who are very, very regular users of ChatGPT and similar tools. I use it all the time. It has kind of replaced Google in my life. I don't know the last time I used Google, because now my go-to for any question I have is a tool like ChatGPT. So let's see some hands for people of that sort. Okay, good. And then if you can put your hands down, and then let's hear it from you. Which individuals, who out of us are power users of tools like ChatGPT? I used to be a coder. I used to spend 8 hours writing a piece of code. I now use tools like ChatGPT and Claude, and I do what used to take me 8 hours. I can do it in about 15 minutes. How many are serious power users whose entire professional life, personal life has been transformed using this kind of technology? Let's see some hands. There are some names I recognize, and these are proper technology guys, so I'm expecting to see their hands go up. Okay, good. Okay, that gives me a sense of where we are. And so what I would like you to do, unfortunately in this format, we can't do it as an exercise or an assignment, but I would have loved to do it as an assignment, is for you to write a prompt to a tool like ChatGPT. And when I say prompt, it's basically a question, right? And you have to learn how to hang a picture frame, a photo frame in your living room. What would you say to it? Just write it down on a sheet of paper or put it in the chat. Put it in the chat. Those who are power users have extra time to help SAA now. That would classify me as well, I presume. Okay, so who can put a prompt in that would say, hang a picture in the living room? And you can do this, by the way. You can go to a tool like ChatGPT and say, help me to hang a picture in my living room. And it will give you an answer, but it won't be a very good answer because your question to it is very broad. And I think that's the first point I want to make. It can help you learn, but you have to be very, very specific with it. So you might, instead of saying, I'd like to hang a picture in my living room, you might want to say, my living room is 14 feet by 10 feet. I have a wall on the 10 feet side, which is quite bare, and I would like to put up a picture. The picture measures this by that. My wall is made of brick or it's made of gypsum. I have these tools available. Help me out. And then it will create, based on the context and the specific information you have given it, it will create a step-by-step set of instructions. But it does not end there, because for those of us who are used to Googling everything, that is kind of the end point, right? You ask a question to Google, it gives you a bunch of search results, and then you're off, and then you go and evaluate each search result and get what you need. Here it's a conversation. And I think that is the second point I want to make, that this whole approach of looking for something, at least for me, has changed dramatically. Now I go in looking for something, knowing that I'm going to have a conversation. So it will tell me, use this, that, and the other. And I might say, oh, I don't have this specific tool. What can I use instead? And it will give me an answer. I might say, I don't understand this particular instruction. Explain it to me in simpler terms. And then so I think point number one you need to remember is, the more specific and the more detailed you are in your conversations with a tool like Claude or ChatGPT, the better it is in terms of the response it gives you. The broader your question, the more superficial the response you will get. And it will be very clearly, very silly answer that you will not derive enough value out. Point number one. Point number two, in my mind, I have moved away from searching for something being a one-shot exercise that I will put a search term, I'll get a bunch of results, and then I have to evaluate them on my own. This is very much a conversation. So think of it as a conversation, and it can help you learn a lot of things. There's a huge DIY movement, I'm sure now in India, but in the Western world has been DIY you do it yourself is a compulsion. It's not an option. So lots of people are using ChatGPT to help figure out what they should do in order to fix things in their house or to improve their house, right? I can see some interesting comments here. I can see some of you have put your suggested prompts in. So this is great. So what I would suggest is make it as focused and as contextual as possible. The more information you give it, the more it will give you back. And that's, in my mind, a way of learning about how you do things in your house. Second one, the way we learned maths when we were little was, quadratic equations. It was a bloody nightmare, because you understood the steps that you had to take, but you could never understand conceptually. At least I could never understand conceptually why we are doing this and what we are doing here. So I understood the steps, and I followed the steps for donkey's years. And after standard 10, I had probably never used quadratic equations in my life. But a wonderful way of using the creativity of a tool like this is to give it a prompt of this sort. Create a small story that teaches my child the concept of quadratic equations, and you'll be surprised with what amazing things it comes up with. So creativity, this tool is right up there. I have done Urdu poetry to wish my friends on their birthday who are a big fan of ghazals, and I don't understand any of the words it comes up with, but it makes sense, and the guys and the people I send them to are very appreciative. And sometimes I make Urdu poetry asking it to use fake Urdu words, and it does that as well, quite well. So use its creativity to make your life better, and then you can use it to build stuff, right? And build. A very easy example would be build a meal plan for me. But like I said before, if you ask it to build a meal plan, it will make a very, very superficial meal plan that does not have enough value for you. What you need to do is give it a lot more context. So I said to it, my relative is diabetic, and they have their readings are so and so. They need to change their eating habits. So make a meal plan. These are their preferences. This is what they like. This is what they don't like. These are the things that are available and they have access to in terms of raw food. Now make me a meal plan. Then it made me a meal plan. And then I'm talking to it, right? So I'm saying, no, they will not be able to make this particular salad dressing, so replace it with something else. And you will be surprised at how good its suggestions are and how accurate they are. So for me, when it comes to living, home parenting, cooking, I just want to share 2 or 3 examples with you. We could run a whole session on, how do you prompt better to get the most value out of ChatGPT and tools like ChatGPT. But I think hopefully this gives you a good start and it gives you some good ideas. I mean, my job and I believe my objective today is to spark some thinking in your head, and then you take that and run with it, right? So that's the first one. Let me take a quick half-minute pause here and run through some comments as well as if there are any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat or unmute yourselves and ask me. I use ChatGPT every second for absolutely every single thing. It's been really helpful, like a personal assistant. And I'll pick up on this point towards the end of my presentation, because your use of personal assistant is very interesting. I would like to use a different term, but we'll come to that towards the end of that presentation. Good. Okay, let's move to the next one, which is job. So this is very interesting, and I know some of us on this call are a different demographic. You're probably enjoying your retired life, sipping pina coladas in your balcony, enjoying the sunshine. But there are some others like me who are still slogging it out there, preparing for a happy retirement in a couple of decades. But the way it has helped me is I can learn a concept or a technology. I'll give you a very simple example. I was working on a project where we had access to approximately 50,000 customer leads, and we could not reach out to all 50,000 of them. So we had to identify the 2,000 or the 4,000 that were most likely to be interested in the product we were marketing. And I had no way of figuring out how to filter that list down from 50,000 to 4,000. I'm a smart guy and I've worked long enough in marketing to have some point of view and some idea, but I wanted to take a more scientific approach. So I called up my colleague who's a data scientist, and I said to him, this is what I want to do. And he gave me some very, very long technical explanation of how it needed to be done and why it could not be done. And I felt a bit out of depth in that discussion because there were a lot of terms that I did not understand. So the first thing I did was, after the call, open up ChatGPT and said, explain these 3 terms to me. And it made a quick first explanation. But then I was going into it knowing that I'm having a conversation. I'm not saying, hey, explain semantic search, and then that's the end of it. I said, explain semantic search in the context of this situation I am in. And so it explained semantic search. Then I picked up 2 or 3 points within that and said, detail this out further. And then I said, okay, I understood this. Now, what could be a practical application? Okay, I got. And so I had a 10-minute long conversation. And at the end of those 10 minutes, I knew enough about semantic search that otherwise I would have taken, 2 hours to learn. Now, I did not become an expert in semantic search, but as a manager, as a management executive, I now know enough about this term that I can have an educated conversation about it with somebody who does it for a living. If they are telling me something I do not understand or I do not agree with, I know enough to be able to challenge them. And that, I think, is a great use case of learning something in your professional environment very, very quickly. And I've used this repeatedly. Small concepts that I need to understand quickly. Now the state of technology with LLMs is at a point where it will give you references to where it is picking up some pieces of information from in its responses. And that I find is incredibly helpful because, a year back or a year and a half back, it would come up with an explanation, but often it would be hallucinating and you would have no way to know because there were no references. But all of that has changed, and this technology is maturing quite quickly. So learning when it comes to your job, to your venture, or to your side hustle, I have found it incredibly efficient because it dramatically crashes the amount of time I need to gain a fairly deep understanding of a particular topic or a particular concept. I see some of my batchmates have joined who are doctors, and I know that the field is constantly evolving. My wife is a doctor as well, and I know that in their field they have to keep learning and keep reading. And something like this is an incredible tool to collapse and crash the amount of time it takes to gain some understanding of a particular context. We are using it a lot in our business to create a lot of things. We are using it to create plans. We are using it to create documents, create reports. Obviously, there are some limitations, and there are some nuances associated with creating. I always say that the line between being smart with an LLM and plagiarizing is very, very thin. So you have to be on the right side of the equation. And what I have found is the more specific you are, the more context you provide, and the more conversations you're willing to have, the better output you're able to generate out of tools like this. You don't want to go to it and say, build me a business plan for this particular idea I have. You want to be able to have a conversation about specific elements of that idea, so that in that conversation, the plan is getting built, and then it is your job with your experience and expertise and judgment to pick out things that are relevant to you and drop the things that are not. And then finally, I've done it, and some of my friends have done it, and we'll talk about a concept called vibe coding in a second. But the fact that anybody today with the craziest idea in the world or the most niche idea in the world can very quickly build an application or a functioning prototype in a matter of hours or in a matter of a couple of days or a weekend, I think is incredible power. And I'm looking at all of our friends here who are past sort of full-time work and have time on their hands. There might be an idea that was your pet idea, but you never found the time or the inclination or the capability to work on it. Now is the time. Pick it up, build something, right? And these tools, and ChatGPT is just scratching the surface, but use that tool to dig deeper and find out about more tools that you could use. So you'll see this presentation is, you can't see it because it's full screen, but I didn't build it in PowerPoint because having worked in PowerPoint for donkey's years, I know what the limitations of PowerPoint are, and I know how long it takes me to build a slide like this on PowerPoint. But I used a different tool, which I'd never heard of. And the reason I came to know about that tool is because I went to ChatGPT and said, I would like to build a presentation. I don't want to use PowerPoint, and I want to use a tool that I can converse with. I can tell it, I want a slide that looks like this. It's got an image on top. It's got 3 bullet points. Each bullet point has an icon, and it builds it for me, right? And that is such a dramatic reduction in time and effort. But the way I found out about it was by conversing with another AI, and that is something that we've got to start becoming more and more comfortable with. And then finally, play. And I want to share a couple of examples here as well. We went on a holiday recently, and we were driving in our rental car. Now, we typically, in a rental car, listen to some music or listen to the radio. But my 8-year-old daughter was with me, and she's an avid reader, and she's interested in history. So we pulled up ChatGPT while driving, and we are talking now. This is voice. So I said, can you tell me about the history of this place? And it's not a great prompt, so it gave me a very generic answer, but it was a start of a conversation. And now my daughter's conversing with it, and she's asking it, get into more detail about what happened in the 1500s. I'd like to know more. So this and this happened. But why did that king do this? And it goes into this whole, they start to learn by conversing and by talking. And I'm seeing it on her face that as she's listening to it actively. She's processing what the app is saying, and she's learning a lot more from that process than she would have otherwise. And I thought that was a fantastic use case and an application of using this tool, especially when you're on holiday. You learn so much more. I've been to places that I've never been to, and I've said to it, make me an itinerary. I have 3 days here. These are my interests. These are my limitations. I'm giving it as much context as I can. This is what I like doing. This is what I don't like doing. I have an elderly parent, so I need places that have wheelchair access or ramps. And it just a fantastic job of building out an itinerary. And then I might look at the itinerary and say, hey, this does not make sense because I want more time here. I don't want 30 minutes. I want 2 hours. Now redo the itinerary by giving me 2 hours here and reduce something else. And we have this iterative discussion, for 15 minutes. And then we, at the end of it, have a fantastic itinerary. Now, did we follow it to the T? Absolutely not. But it gave us so many ideas, which otherwise would have taken us way, way longer than it did, right? And then the third one is really, really interesting, build. So I was heading to Munich a few weeks back. I drove to the airport, which is 1 hour away, for a flight which was at 6 a.m. And just as I was parking my car, I discovered I'd forgotten my passport at home. So I had to drive back, and I was not going to make my flight anymore. And I needed alternatives. And incidentally, that was the day when the airport at Munich was on a workers' strike, so flights were severely restricted. So as I was driving back at 5 in the morning, I'm thinking, now who should I call to help me get an alternate itinerary? I can call my company's travel agency, but I've spoken to them before and I know it won't be very helpful. I can call my sibling, I can call my parent, ask them to sit in front of a computer because I'm driving. And I said, you know what, let me give it a shot. So I started voice chatting with ChatGPT while I'm driving. I said, hey, I can take you through that example because it's a really nice one. So here it is. So let me stop sharing my screen and share again so you can see it. My screen's gone now, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the old one is gone.
Yeah, one second. So here we are. So all this is a voice conversation. And it starts over here. I'm saying, give me a list of airports. It's giving me a list of airports. I'm saying these are not international. I want international airports I can fly to. Then it's giving me some more. Then I'm saying, are there any flights? It's looking at flight schedule. All this while I'm driving. I'm saying this time doesn't work for me. Any other flights? No other flights. And I'm asking about Stuttgart. How long does it take by train? I'm also checking off, what works for me, what does not. There's a flight 8:25 a.m. does not work for me. 9:10 a.m. does not work for me. I won't be able to make it. And then as I'm thinking through and as we are chatting and I'm exploring various options, I say to it, what about Innsbruck? And then it says, yes, Innsbruck may work. I say, are there frequent trains? It says, yes, there are frequent trains. Is there a flight? Yes, there is a flight. And then I say, I found a BA flight. So immediately I pull out my phone, I book it. What would happen in the future is, and that future is not very far away, that I would say to it also, can you book me this flight? And if you have heard of the term agentic AI, then that's what agentic AI would do. It would book me this flight because it would be connected with the flight booking system. So here it's given me the flight number. It's given me, I asked for the flight ticket. Now I'm already starting to talk about how do I get from Innsbruck to the airport. And then it says it takes so much time. It takes so much money. So I'm going into it knowing exactly what I'm getting into, right? It's telling me there's a train. I look for the train. I book a train. I get a ticket. And then the ticket is in German. So I don't know how to read it, right? So I give it the ticket and I say, read this and tell me if I can use this on any journey. And it reads the ticket and it tells me. And I say, are you sure? Do not hallucinate. And it says, yes, I'm sure, because it was hallucinating previously. So you see, I'm asking it to build something for me, build an alternate itinerary on the fly. I'm driving, I'm talking to it. And I'll talk about what lesson I learned from this in a second. But to me, this was a very interesting case. This is the second one that I want to share with you, which was very interesting and saved me a huge amount of time. And may not be relevant to a lot of you in the moment, but just to give you a sense of what it can accomplish, right? So here we are. So I wanted to make a list of Tesla superchargers within a 50-mile radius of about 30 locations. So I had a list of 30 locations, and for each location, I wanted a list of which superchargers are sitting within a 50-mile radius of those locations. Now, again, I'm a smart guy. I can do this manually, but I did a quick sort of back of the envelope, and I thought if I have to do this manually, A, it'll be very painful, B, it'll be very time consuming. So I want to look for an automated process. So here, it's giving me 3 automated processes. I'm then jumping into one of them, and I'm saying, give me more details on this one. It gives me some more details. I read them. I say, I don't want to do this because it's too much code. I don't want to write all of this. I don't want to paste all of this code. So I say, I don't want to do this. And then, it walks me through and I genuinely followed these steps one by one. I have never written a piece of code before. I'm a software engineer, but I have never done any of this. All I did was keep copying, keep pasting, and whatever I wanted to do differently, just ask it a follow-up question. Eventually, I got what I needed. I even asked it to format it in a specific way. It took me about 30 minutes to run through this whole process, and I got what I needed. In the absence of something like this, without the ability to code, which I'm sure is true of a lot of us here, it would have probably taken me 2 or 3 days with a lot of painful effort to do something like this. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is it is giving all of us a level of superpower that honestly we did not have till now. And this superpower is accessible for a few dollars a month for free in many cases. And so, it would be silly to not make full use of it. I'm going to try and share my screen again. So we go back to our original window, and I'm also conscious of time. So that's a little bit about the present and about some ways in which it has helped me live a better life, learn more, create more, build more across my home, work, and play. A quick note on where I see this going tomorrow. There are a few things I'm excited about, and there are, if I could sort of cluster them into 3 categories. One, I think we are at a point where a lot of software and a lot of the way we do things has the potential to be completely disrupted with this technology. So I think we're sitting on significant opportunity to reimagine a lot of the ways in which things are done. And this technology is making it possible and viable to do that. And it is making people like you and me, giving us the ability to do it ourselves. So if you're looking at a particular piece of software or a tool and you feel you don't like how it works, or you'd like to do it differently, today, like I said, with a few hours of effort or a few days of effort, you have the ability to create something on your own. There are numerous ideas and opportunities out there which are getting unlocked because of what this is able to do, which we could not do in the past. And we are working on some of these in our business. I'm sort of happy to share more details with you separately in case you would want. But it has opened up also this whole new phenomenon of vibe coding. And for those of you who haven't heard of vibe coding, please go read up about it. But these are sort of individuals like you and me who have a very, very niche or a very small product idea, and who in the past they don't have the ability to code. They're not software engineers. They're not engineers, but they have an idea. They understand the domain. In the past, they would be severely restricted and limited. They'd say, "Oh, I have an idea. I would like to start a business, but I need a technical co-founder." That whole constraint is gone today. These guys are sitting in front of a computer for a weekend. They are learning about various tools they can use to create a prototype and an application up and running in a couple of days. The amount of learning material out there is ridiculous. It is unreal, and we'll talk about that as well. But to me, this is what I'm most excited about, that it is opening up infinite opportunities. A large number of ideas that were not possible 3 or 4 years back are suddenly now possible. And it is giving power and agency and autonomy to whole millions of people who are sitting there and vibe coding and creating stuff. And I think there's going to be a vibrant landscape of tools and enablers available that will make our lives a lot better and a lot simpler. And then finally, one of the things that we all suffer from at some point in time is boredom. And with something like this, there is never a dull moment. I've been talking to my parents about it, and I've been teaching them how to deal with their boredom with something like this. Just pick up a topic that you'd like to learn more about. And in the past, you'd have to go looking for YouTube videos, and you'd have to, run Google searches and then sift through the 3 million results that you. None of that. You just talk to it. Just talk to it and learn from it and ask it questions and be like a curious child, and you will be surprised at how amazing it is and how there is not a dull moment. But I'm also cautious about a few things. There is a very, very cliched statement that's going around saying AI will not take your job, but somebody using AI will take your job. I think it's a whole load of bullshit. I think AI will take your job. In most cases, it is doing that a lot of our jobs much better than we have done for ages. So all of that said, the kinds of jobs and the kinds of skills that are required to fulfill those jobs will undergo some dramatic change. And so, for people like us, our generation, we have to kind of stay ahead of the curve there, or we are going to be hit by saying, my company comes to me and says, well, we don't need 15 managers at your level anymore because 30% of what you were doing, 40% of what you were doing is now being done by a model that we are paying for. So boom, that layer is cut by 30%. And you see all of this happening already. There was a wave of cuts in technology companies last year. We have never really come back from there. And I don't think we'll come back to the levels of staffing that we saw in the past. So there will be significant changes, and we've got to be ahead of it. The second point that I'm a bit cautious about is the question of privacy and control, but more importantly, the question of power, right? So we are seeing that a lot of power and a lot of influence is now getting concentrated in the hands of these companies, which are building the plumbing and building the infrastructure that will run these technologies. And so we've got to be conscious that there are some downsides to all of this concentration of power. And then finally, I think, Sunay, there was a question you asked about fake Urdu words and so on, and how do you make sure that it's not spewing garbage? And all I want to say is that's a small problem. The big problem is when you cannot trust what you see. Already you're very familiar with deepfakes. You're very familiar with Boris Johnson's video being made to say whatever you wanted to say. I think this is a very, very scary prospect, and this is something that, again, we have to recalibrate our brains. Everything that you see that has come in a WhatsApp forward is not something you can trust or you can take at face value, and so we have to become a lot more circumspect and a lot more reliant and a lot more familiar and comfortable with tools that tell us what might be fake and what is not. So there's something to keep in mind as well. And then finally, to wrap it up, right? Think of AI as a new friend, right? When you make a new friend, you get to know each other, you have conversations, you build a relationship, you get comfortable communicating with each other. You have to think of a tool like ChatGPT or a tool like Claude as your new friend. You have to become comfortable and you have to become unself-conscious in communicating with it. It is very different from a Google search. The stated idea of a Google search or Google was we want people to spend as little time as possible on our page because we want them to go and get what they're looking for. This is very different. This is your new friend. Get to know it, talk to it, chat with it, share things with it, and you will be surprised at how easily good it is. And the more comfortable you get, the better you will get at extracting value and benefit out of it. So that will be my first sort of suggestion or submission to all of you with due humility. Think of this as a new friend that you're building a new relationship with. Very different from a personal assistant that you would ask to do tasks for you. This is somebody that you build a relationship with, right? So it's slightly counterintuitive. Two, teach yourself. Like I said, the amount of resource available out there is unreal, but it can also quickly get very, very intimidating. You don't know where to start. You open up YouTube and there are 20,000 videos on agentic AI and the thumbnails look all the same and you don't know what to do. Forget it, don't go there. Start with something like this and start with a prompt as simple as, hey, I've heard of agentic AI. I don't have any background in AI. Can you explain to me what agentic AI is and how is it different from an LLM? And it'll give you an answer. And then ask a follow-up question, just like you would do as a curious child to a teacher or a parent, and have a conversation. And you'll be surprised how quickly you become aware of so many things that you were otherwise not. And then it is up to you what level of detail you want to go into. And then, using that conversation, you want to build an agentic AI application or a proof of concept or a prototype, it will help you to do that. It will guide you to the right tools. It will help you with instructions that you must follow. It's an amazing and incredibly fulfilling process. So keep experimenting. And then finally, this is true of our seniors. It is true of us. It is true of our juniors. Build something. There is no substitute to rolling up your sleeves, building something with your own hands, as silly as it may sound, as stupid as it may sound. But if it gives you joy, it gives you the opportunity to learn and, try things out and learn from that process. There really is no substitute. All of us have chores that we hate doing. Think of how something like this might help to automate some of those chores and take something away from them. I mean, obviously, it will not help you load your dishwasher and put your clothes up on the line to dry, but there are other things it can help you do that you don't like doing today. And so those are some of the things that I would like to share with you today. So, I want to leave you with Spark. So live long and prosper with this amazing technology that even 5 years back would have been impossible to dream that we would have access to something like this in our pockets. So we have it today. So go out there and make the most of it.
We're open to questions.
I think Charvi has one question. She has raised her hand.
Hello, I really loved the presentation. It was really nice. And personally, I'm like a student also of AIML, so like this was really informative. So I had one question that what like future of AI do you think, in which specific sectors and industries do you think AI is taking the job and will definitely take up the job, and in sectors where AI cannot take up the job?
I think it's a really good question and a very, very difficult answer, but I'll try my best to answer your question. Any sector that has high levels of automation or ability to automate is at high risk of being taken over by AI. You will be surprised that AI is taking up a lot of customer service jobs. I know in our business where we run help desks for a number of our clients, we are surprised by how much better AI is than a human agent at finding resolutions and finding answers out of a large knowledge base or repository of resources and files. We are very, very surprised at how good it is in having conversations with a human, voice conversations, often impossible to make out that you're speaking to an AI. So those are jobs that are already at risk. I have heard of in the mainstream media, so you have heard as well, of number of companies that have reduced their customer service staff and they have reduced their call centers by orders of magnitude because this technology is coming in and automating large volumes of calls they handle. Any jobs that are highly repeatable, highly automatable, admin jobs, your job is just creating a report and then sending out 3 emails and you just do it every 2 hours. These are things that are going to disappear. So and we have started to see this trend already. What will not disappear, what will be difficult to replace is anything that requires either a physical human touch or requires physical human activity. Eventually, the physical manifestation of AI in the form of robotics will play a role in taking those over. But anything that requires human touch, human care, affection, building trust, these are things that I think will be slower to fall prey or are at lower risk based on what I'm seeing and where I'm sitting. All of that said, there will be a raft of new jobs, new roles that we probably cannot visualize today, but there will be. I mean, it's not all doom and gloom. It's just that the landscape will change quite dramatically, and I won't be surprised if 30, 40 years down the line we look back and say, "Oh, we actually sat in front of a telephone line and made calls to people all day, or people actually called into a help desk and a human helped them." Why would you do that? So I can imagine a world of that sort coming very soon.
Yeah, and I wanted to know, like careers of example a doctor and a lawyer. So these require a lot of data and practice. Do you think in future these can be also taken up by AI? Because
I see two main themes here. One, and I take two examples, right? In the field of law, AI is already doing what a lot of paralegals used to do and doing it much faster, much better, and much cheaper. So that is straight away at risk. AI can do that job a lot better. In case of the medical field, a second theme is that you think of this technology as a sort of co-pilot or as a sort of right-hand man, rather than something that will take away your job. It is something that will help you to do your job better, faster, more productively. Regardless, in every field, there is a place for, like I said, human interaction, human touch, human trust. And I think those are areas that will continue to be managed and delivered by humans. In some cases, the grunt work might be done entirely by AI. In some cases, AI may be a sort of support to these humans. I know in the country I live, there is a substantial shortage of medical staff. So there is a proper constraint in terms of the number of doctors that are available in this country. And so for this country, AI is like a boon, right? So you have somebody who is not as qualified, not as experienced, but is equipped with this kind of technology and is able to do a job which is 80-85% or manage 85% of the cases that a human would. I think the last thing I want to say is that at the end of the day, there is no substitute for human experience and judgment, and there are always going to be scenarios and circumstances in any industry, in any use case, where there will be a small number of tail cases where human judgment and human experience is required, and that will continue to remain even in the future. I think what worries me is, and I was reading about it somewhere the other day, that those who are very experienced doctors today got there because they went through the grunt work of going through the grind and learning from other doctors and watching them and going through the experience of solving cases that the big risk I see is that there is a whole generation that will not get that experience. So 50 years down the line, who is going to be that experienced human who can use their judgment? Because they just wouldn't have gone through that journey. So maybe that will be a constraint. Maybe there will be a different version or an interpretation of AI that will play that role. I don't know what the future holds, but those are some of the themes that I have in mind.
I was worrying that our library in the school will vanish. There will be no books, substituted by digital library and AI.
Maybe, yes. I know there is a romance to holding a book in your hands. There's a romance to searching through the shelves and discovering something you did not expect to discover. But maybe that's romance for us, and 20 years down the line, it won't be for future generations. So maybe it will. I don't know. Maybe it will become an ancient relic that people visit to for entertainment rather than for reference. It's interesting you bring up the library topic, because as I was working on this presentation, one of the things that struck me was, Google is like walking into a library in the digital world. It's like walking into a library, asking a question at a kiosk, and then the kiosk tells you, oh, here are 200 things that you could go and explore and go and explore them. Whereas AI or ChatGPT is like talking to a very experienced librarian who somehow seems to know a lot about everything, right? So I think the perspective has to change, and maybe they will disappear. But all I can say is that the knowledge will not disappear. The way of accessing that knowledge may be dramatically different from what we are used to and what we consider the right way. It'll be very different.
Yes,
advancement of AI in medical field is dangerous.
It appears to be more a comment than a question. I agree. I mean, any technology has an upside and has a sort of dark side. So I wouldn't make a blanket statement like this. Yes, it's got elements that are dangerous and we have to be conscious about and work towards mitigating. But I think equally the opportunities that it offers are also substantial. Prashant is a dear friend, so I'm sure the next time I'm in Bombay or he's in London, we'll share a beer together and have a long discussion about this.
Really like to thank you for this was a fantastic webinar. I think the interest levels showed in terms of the number of people who came in. We had quite a few number of people who came in and were there for substantial period, and then there was a bit of churn that kept happening. Throughout your presentation, you really structured it in terms of the past, the present, and the future. To many of us who were not very familiar with AI, I think there is a past which was till 7 p.m. and then there was the webinar that you gave, and then there is a future post. The interest levels that we had, the understanding, the basic understanding prior to your webinar and post your webinar, there is a dramatic difference. Many of us are going to be exploring ways in terms of how we could interact with AI in order to enrich our lives. So to that extent, this was very, very enlightening. On behalf of Solonian Alumni Association, thank you for a most enlightening 75 minutes.
Thank you all for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.